You're a mum, you're a mum, you're a busy mum. Come listen to the Busy Mum podcast. Life hacks and inspiration for the busy modern mum.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Busy Mum podcast. Just before we get into this interview, I will be releasing new episodes each Monday morning, just like clockwork. Also, if you don't want to miss an episode, subscribe to my iTunes channel, The Busy Mum Podcast. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. Just search The Busy Mum and you should find me there. Now, a word from our sponsor. Do you find that you hop in the shower, you're enjoying the lovely hot water dripping down all over your body, relaxation, no interruptions from the kids, and you think, yeah, I'm going to shave my legs now. You just pick up your razor and it's in just the most rubbish condition. It's rusted, it's full of soap scum or shaving cream, or even your husband has grabbed it and shaved his face and not cleaned it out. Gross. But you clean it out a little bit, you give it a go, and you end up cutting your legs, and now they look worse than when they were just a little bit hairy. Well, now thanks to Pins, the latest and greatest women's leg shaving company, you can have them delivered straight to your door. New razors all the time. But not only do they have razors with 6 blades plus 4 extra cartridges in the pack, but they also have a clear shave gel, which is slippery as hell and moisturizes to boot. The gel also allows you to see exactly what you are shaving, which is great for those pits and private bits. I've been using them now for at least 6 months and am loving it. Check them out at www.pins.com.au. And don't forget to use the Busy Mum podcast code, BusyMum, to get 15% off your first purchase. Welcome to the Busy Mum podcast, Alela. How are you this morning?
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. You were referred to me by Michelle from Gaia. Gaia. See, my pronunciations are all over the place this morning.
I say Gaia. Is it Gaia?
Gaia. I'm not sure. I've got to listen back to the podcast. I'm pretty sure she said the word a few times, and it should stick in my brain, but things just don't stick in my brain these days, having 2 kids and yep. All. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Like, who are you? What do you do? Sure. And if you have a business, what do you do in it?
So I'm Alela. I'm a mum of 2. My daughter's 5. My son is 2. We live in the Dandenong Ranges in Melbourne, which is beautiful. We're at the top of the mountain. And I am a health coach, nutritionist, Pilates teacher, like literally kind of everything in the health and wellness world. I was actually in media and worked in radio and television and was that sort of career-driven, anything that had that great name and title next to it. And then as soon as my daughter was born, it all very quickly went out the window, and the idea of being at work, huge long hours and being at events every night just no longer appealed to me. So I got to work on, just studying everything I'd had as a bit of a passion, I suppose. But really at the time it was more of an escape plan. And then I actually opened up my own Pilates studio, which was great for, a couple of minutes until I realised it was working way more than what I was previously doing. And, ended up developing a fully online business, which is what I do now, in amongst obviously first and foremost being with the kids every day. So they keep me busy, especially the 2-year-old.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you've come from like the marketing and event planning background. I've had a few mums that I've spoken to that have come from that type of background, and as soon as their little babies come into the world, they're just like, I cannot work at that pace anymore. It's for the 20-something-year-olds. So it's very interesting. And what happened with the Pilates business? Like, how did you open it, and then did you sell it, or did you just close the doors and walk away from it?
No, I sold it. But then they ended up closing the doors, I think. It was obviously just a dream. I think, anyone that sort of has that business mind, it's a dream to have that bricks and mortar, and it really is a dream because the fantasy is so much more fun than the reality. Because you really, and it was the most beautiful space. It was this gorgeous, white brick and just beautiful, so much light and these gorgeous floors, and exactly how I pictured it in my mind was what I was able to create. The part I didn't picture in my mind was the fact that any sort of a business where you are the business means that obviously you have to teach every class. Obviously people are there to be taught by you. And so I was leaving the house at 5 in the morning to be there for a 6 a.m. class, and I was getting home at 10 o'clock after a 8:30, 9 o'clock class. And so I very quickly got absolutely exhausted. I actually mentally thought I was fine, but physically I ended up with adrenal fatigue and all sorts of issues just from, sleeping a few hours a night.
Yeah, sleep is highly, highly important. I try and get about 8 hours sleep a night. It's hard, but it just means I have to go to bed earlier. And sometimes when the kids don't go to bed, I still want that me time of a night time, and that's 1 or 2 hours. So if they're in bed by, say, 9 o'clock, and sometimes it can be 10, I'm just getting real with you here. If I want 1 or 2 hours, we're already at midnight. And sometimes, that's just too late. I was always told the hours before midnight were more important than the hours after midnight when you go to sleep. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So, and the old sort of, you need sort of 7 or 8 hours sleep is kind of been flipped on its head at the minute. And they're saying more like 8 to 9 hours of sleep. So it's not, and you're not a hero for getting less sleep. You hear people say all the time, I survive really well on 5 or 6 hours, but that's actually not true. You might get on with things, but inside your body, there's a lot of damage being done. So I think that's why new mums struggle so much in regards to, obviously I deal with a lot of my clients are women, and a lot of them are, in that sort of weight loss or just complete fatigue or hormonal issues, a whole range of things. And usually it all boils down to rest. And the human body is this incredible computer that's capable of everything and anything, but we just don't give it enough rest. And it's that sort of, I'm fitting so much in, and it's like, okay, great, and good on you for doing all that, but sleep has to come first. When the kids, same as what you were just saying, when my kids are asleep, which luckily at this stage is about 7:30, that's when I start work or I start studies and things. So for me, it's as soon as they're down, I need to get to work. And so the way I've sort of found to get around that and to get more sleep is one night a week I go to bed at 7 with them.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I get one huge sleep. Yeah, and it's my favourite night of the week.
That's a good little life hack there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Really, I remember being pregnant and not physically, my body just pretty much put me to sleep at 8 o'clock every night after work. It was like, okay, now it's time to sleep. You're growing a baby. And you do, I never used to sleep when my baby slept, and everyone told me that. It's like, you should sleep when your baby sleeps. And I'm like, but what about the washing? What about the house? What about me? What about my shows that I'm watching? But I should have really slept.
Yeah, well, and I agree. I mean, I never did that either. And I think you talk to any mum, they didn't either. It's that constant pressure and need to get things done. And it's self-imposed pressure, I think, more than anything, because, in other cultures, when they have a baby, they stay in bed literally for months, and other people bring them food. And it's this total healing and this 4th trimester time of just, healing and letting the body rest. But for some reason now it's, you're out at a cafe 2 days later.
Yeah, I know. You're trying to look beautiful.
In a bikini on the beach a month later. Yeah, exactly. And I think for me it's just that, teaching people again, you're not a hero, and when you don't work, nothing in your life works, especially the kids or your family. So putting yourself first is actually not being selfish. It's a necessity for everybody around you.
Yeah, exactly. And what's the business that you have now that you've created? Because you've talked about the Pilates class and it did revolve around you. So you've got an online business, which obviously you're still working in, but what's that called and how can we find you?
Yeah, so the soulnutrient.com, soul as in SOUL, not sole of your foot. And so I'm an IAN health coach, a great school in New York, and so really everything is about creating, plans for people dependent on what they need. So there's no sort of one plan fits all. Some people it's weight loss, some people it's postpartum care, just as we spoke about. For others it's hormonal issues. For some it's just having a coach to be accountable to, and for others it's got nothing to do with food and everything to do with primary food, which is what we talk about basically everything that's happening in your life, your relationships, the love in your life, the joy, if you're being creative or not, your work, and if that lights you up, and all the other areas of your life. And then secondary food is the food you eat. So sort of acknowledging that health and wellness doesn't just come from what you eat, it's everything else.
Oh, okay. I haven't actually heard that before.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how many, like, do you have like a online course, or do you do like client by client basis?
I do client by client. Sometimes I do 8-week courses. Sometimes I do events. We own a karate school as well here. My husband is a Shian, sensei in Kyokushin karate, a type of karate. So he opened the dojo actually earlier this year, and that's been full. So it's been a great space as well to do some really cool women's wellness and awareness events, which essentially is like self-defense, but also adding in the fact that it, so you can teach some people some cool sort of tricks to do, but it's also about what's your posture like, how are you showing up in every area of your life, and the confidence that you have in yourself. So we do those events every month or so, which are great, and it's a mix of everything really. It just sort of cemented in this business a few years ago, and so I'm still very much in those initial stages, but right now absolutely loving it, which I think helps.
Oh, it absolutely does help, because when you do start your own business, if you don't love it, it doesn't last long.
No, absolutely not. And it's hard, I have to be so dedicated to every hour in a different way. Never before in my life would I like plan in everything so religiously. This 2 hours is for this 2 hours is for that, special date nights. This is the night I'm going to go to bed early, like literally plan everything so that it all works and so that there's a good balance. Whereas I think when I first started out certainly with the studio and any sort of business ideas I had, it was just throw yourself into it and just go with what you think you should be doing and not really listen to your gut instincts on things. And I think in business too many people feel that you have to follow a formula, but the truth is, there isn't a formula. You just have to go with what feels good and what feels right for you, and the rest will work out. Because when you're happy in what you're doing, you attract the people that you want to be attracting, and not the sort of rubbish that you don't want to be doing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah.
So following on from that, like, what's a normal or a typical day in your world look like?
Okay. Have you got some time?
We've got a little bit of time.
Okay, all right, here we go. So I get up about 5:15 and I go to a class. Usually it's sort of a ballet bar or a Pilates or a yoga, whatever I sort of feel like at the time. But I'll always get to a class that starts around 6. That's sort of my hour to myself every morning. Get home around 7:30, husband leaves for work, get kids ready, kinder drop off, all of that sort of thing. Then I just spend a couple of hours in the morning with my son, the 2-year-old, and at the minute that means 2 hours of shooting hoops because he's obsessed with basketball. So shooting hoops for 2 hours, and then there'll be kinder pickups in the afternoon, and again a sort of a bit of a play with the kids, get them ready for bed, dinner, all that stuff, and then I start work or study. And so I'll do that until I need to. Like I said, some nights it's a flat out night until very late, and others I try to keep it only till 9 or 10 o'clock at night, depending on. And that's it. My husband's at the karate school most nights, so I really am sort of solo parenting throughout the week. And so it's just the key that I've found to that is just having that good routine, but also understanding that things are going to come up. Kids are going to get sick, things are going to happen. And the good thing about having the online business is that you can call the shots as you need to, and move things as you need to as well, which is important, I think, as a mum.
Yeah, be bendy and flexible, metaphorically, not physically.
Yeah. Well, that too. Flexibility is important.
Oh, cool. So what's the best advice you've received lately?
Oh, that's a good one.
Next.
My favourite advice ever is to not take advice. Yeah, my favourite advice, especially I was pregnant and someone said, I've got the best advice for you, and I sort of rolled my eyes like, okay, here we go. and it was don't take any advice, just listen to your intuition. I thought, oh, that's so good. And I've really followed that forever, because what has worked for someone else does not mean that it will work for you. So I think that's something that I've always carried on, is to not really listen to any advice, especially from family.
And steer clear of those people that like to just keep giving you their opinion and advice, because sometimes like they think that they're giving really good advice, but actually they're just shoving their opinion down your throat. And you're like, okay, thank you. I've got to master that. Yes, thank you. I didn't know that. Let's keep going on.
Yeah, 100%. So thanks so much. I'll keep that in my files and think about it if I need it. Appreciate your help and move on. Yeah. I'm terrible at that too. I have a bit of an eye roll that happens, I think.
Oh, it's all over my face. Like, if I don't like someone or what they're saying, like, it's really hard for my face not to show that. And also because I can't see what my face is doing at the time. I just, just pull a funny face, and they're like, what's the matter? I'm like, what do you mean, what's the matter? But your face. I'm like, I don't know what I just did. I'm sorry. It's so bad. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So my next question is in relation to books, if you're reading any current books. But I have a great book that I'm currently reading, and it's called The Barefoot Investor for Families. And it teaches you how to teach your kids about finances and how to manage money happily and safely, I suppose. What books are you into right now?
Mm-hmm. Well, look, I've been studying for so many years now that I sort of all my books are related to health and well-being and psychology. But I actually have a bunch of books that I'm reading at the minute. I sort of, pick a chapter from one and then move into the other. But I have, what is it called? The Healing Self, which is a Deepak Chopra book. Mm-hmm. It's on basically the brain and that sort of thing, and Women Who Run with the Wolves, which is quite a famous book, and it's a huge book. It's taken me a while to get through, but it's essentially about women who like to think outside the square, and it's sort of going back to our animalistic ways, I suppose, in not conforming. And apparently it's one of the best books to read of all time, and so I'm giving it a shot. But whenever we go on holiday, I love to just read something that's fun and completely made up and has nothing to do with education, because I feel like the rest of the year it's all about education. So we're going away in a few weeks.
I hardly read books like that. I'm always about the self-help kind of books.
Yes.
And how to improve
But
myself.
they're so fun.
They're so fun.
Those books that just the books that are about nothing are great. Last year it was actually Big Little Lies, which they ended up making into that TV series.
Oh, which was great.
But while we were away, which was so good, and the book was great, and I just couldn't put it down on holiday. And which really happens, I think, too, when you've got kids, right? Like, how often do you sit there and read?
No, you don't. Yeah. You listen to them read.
No, you don't.
And poorly.
Yeah.
Like, it's like
terribly
agonising. I love my children.
Well,
I really
we're
do.
about to teach my daughter to read at the minute, and so it's actually, I heard myself yesterday, we're trying to sound out the vowels, and so like cat and like a, ah, and I was like, oh wow.
Get them to recognise the letters. Start with the letters. Okay. Just recognise what the letters is. Like, what's that letter? Sorry, that came out wrong. Yeah. But it's really painful, and like you need a truck ton of patience, and like
and wine.
Well, you could, but then they're like, Mummy, do you need more wine while I read? So like it's probably not setting them up for a really good thing, because that will come out in show and tell. So you got to think of that as well. You've got to kind of pare it all back, and I try and do it when they're awake, and like I think of kids like what are they like? And this is a poor analogy, but I'm still going to say it. When you get older, you get Alzheimer's. Some people get Alzheimer's, and they have those moments of like when they're normal, and then they just go off into their land of, where they're not with us anymore. And I think that's a little bit like children when they're learning stuff. Is like they can be like full on learning for a good 10 minutes, but then you've lost them. Then they're off in their fairyland doing something else. So you've got to find that time where they're like in the zone. And it could be anywhere. Like you could be at the shops and they're in the zone. Then you should sit down with a book and like just sit on the bench and read with them while take it, because it could be any time. But if you try and force them to do something when they're just off with the fairies, it's just not going to work. That's my advice.
So true.
That's my opinion to you.
And I probably like that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think I'm going to leave the teaching to read to maybe the grandparents. I think they'd be great at that.
Or the teachers, man.
Palm that
like, you just palm it off to the teachers. You do so much anyway as a mum.
Yeah, true.
That on top of that, the reading, like I'm only talking about this at length because like I've got a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. My 9-year-old's fine now, she can read, but my 6-year-old, like she's getting to the end of kindy and she can read, but it's still really slow and painful.
Yeah. Well, that's still really good though. My daughter's just about to finish kindy and start school next year.
Yeah. Oh, we'll see.
Although she's just turned 5 and.
Isn't it you're in Victoria, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in New South Wales, so Sydney, and I think kindy and preschool are switched around, if that makes sense. So my kid's already done preschool and now she's in kindy. Okay. Whereas is your kid in preschool and is about to... No, in kindy.
About to start school. Just in kindy, about to start school.
Start prep? Is it called prep?
Prep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like preschool? I don't know. It's so confusing. And in Perth, it's something totally different. So,
yeah.
There you go.
And in I'm actually born and bred Adelaide, and in Adelaide they call it it's kindergarten and reception, not prep.
Oh.
And they go through in primary school. They go through till they have year 7 in primary school and start high school year 8, whereas Victoria, they start high school year 7.
Yeah, I remember because I went to school here and I went to school in Perth and Darwin and it was all different, and I can't even tell you what year was high school because I think when I was in New South Wales, it was year 7 was high school, and then I almost finished year 8 here. And then we went to Perth and I skipped an entire year, went to year 9. I'm like, how does that work? So it's mind-boggling. I was like, okay, I feel like I've skipped a whole year, but not because of my wisdom and how smart I was, but just purely because of my age, I think. They're like, oh, you're that age, you go in that year. I'm like, okay, I feel like it was good because I finished a whole year earlier than the rest of my friends, but I think I must have missed a year somehow. Anyway, let's move on, hey? Talking about school. Each day, are you cooking dinner? Or are you doing meal prep on the weekends? Are you that organised person or a bit like me and kind of get to 4 o'clock and go, oh, we're going to have XYZ?
No, I'm a bit more of a meal prep person because I talk to my clients about that as well, and because it's just another thing to not have to worry about in my day. I'd prefer to spend that sort of afternoon time with Bath and, you know, after kinder before dinner time is just a really great time to hang out, especially as it's getting warmer at the minute, and to go for a walk outside or just to sit in the garden and just to do something together rather than me having to be cooking. And I found that I love to cook. Well, I loved to cook. And then now having a family and obviously everyone, you know, at different ages and different stages with their food journey, it's so difficult and just not enjoyable. And so I feel like it can put me in a little bit of a mood if I'm having to cook every night. So this way I do Sunday or Monday, I put music on, I get my daughter in the kitchen with me, I teach her. She made an incredible pumpkin risotto the other day, and so she's really learning to cook. It makes it so much more fun. The whole kitchen gets turned upside down and it's a giant mess. But we've got most of the meals for everybody prepped for the whole week. And so therefore it's just one big clean up, one big day of it, and then it's done.
Oh, beautiful.
And then I find if we do get caught out or if, you know, someone gets sick, I mean, not that we have been this year, thank God, but if that happens or if we're away or, you know, we get caught with anything, then I know it's all there ready to go. It's just easier in that sense.
And what's your go-to dinners? Like what you mentioned a pumpkin risotto. Do you have any other like specialties that you go to, like your quick meals?
We like fish tacos is a big one. The kids love making tacos, and so we'll sort of do like a barramundi tacos with like mango and lots of avocado, and that's a big one.
Wow, yum.
Veggie and lentil soup is a big one. It's just because I can put in every vegetable and the kids will eat it, and so that solves that problem for me. And then, we'll make sort of risotto. And to be honest, I'm really going through, I need to get a new repertoire happening, because I think, and I was talking to quite a few mums about this only just yesterday, that you get into a cycle of the same meals and you get so bored of it. But you kind of have to do that in a way with kids, because when you get something that works, you have to just keep going with it. So, I need to get back to the drawing board and come up with some new things.
Yeah, I had my daughter say, why do we have to eat the same thing every night? And I say, well, because you don't eat anything else. And like, if I try and change it, oh my God, it's like World War III. And I always say, if you want to take out, say, a vegetable, say you don't want to eat broccoli anymore, you've got to find another green vegetable to replace that. You know, you can't just take it out and leave it out. And they're like, oh, okay.
Well, we've spoken always about, it's sort of something that we created when the kids were younger, and it's something actually we're in the process of writing a kids book about. But we talk in relation to strong food and weak food, and it works really well with the kids. So rather than, and obviously I see so many adults that have issues in and around food, and I don't want to have my kids have those issues, obviously. Yeah. And so we talk about strong food and weak food. So no food is good or bad. No food is sort of right or wrong. It's just got one type of food. Broccoli is going to make you stronger. Ice cream is going to make you weaker. But having a balance of the two is fine as well. So they really understand and grasp that concept so well. It's worked a treat. So if we are, like we were at a kids' party on the weekend, and I could see them just beeline for the cupcakes on the table, and I said, is that a weak food or a strong food? And they said weak, but we're going to have strong food the rest of the day.
Yeah,
so I said, great,
good.
Have one. Yeah, and then they'll know to only have stronger food, and they actually ask for it now. So if they've had something, it'll be, I need some strong food now. I'll say, do you want an apple or some of the soup, or which strong food do you want? So it's been great, and it's worked so well in helping them to make those just choices for themselves and understand that, how food actually affects you.
Yeah, no, I never thought of it in that way. I've been trying to teach my kids that like there's real food and non-food. Like almost everything in a packet, it's like a man-made food. It's really not food. It's not going to make you, as you say, stronger. So I think I like your concept a little bit better than mine. So I might steal that from you.
Absolutely.
And teach my children. Yeah. But my children do have like this guilty conscience. Like if they've had cupcakes during the day and they haven't eaten their recess, and I'll unpack their bag, they're like, oh yeah, I had some cupcakes today, Mummy. I had 3. Yeah. Like they know. Yeah. They know what's right and wrong, which is good. And it's good that they've got a conscience. So
I have to say, lunch boxes are my pet peeve. It's like the one thing that stresses me out, and probably the one and only thing that I get stressed about every week, I think, is just lunch boxes. I find it to be so difficult.
Well, can't you just feed them the same thing that you feed them at home, but just in the lunchbox form?
I think that, they won't have sandwiches, so it's hard to sort of send off, where there's nowhere to heat things up or put it in a fridge. I just think Australia's school system is so bad. In other countries, they have fridges for kids to put things.
Let's do the Japanese style, where they all get to cook their own meals and clean up at school.
And sit down together, as food should be eaten at a table, or, instead of running around with a sandwich in your hand, doing something else. We sort of already show kids at the school level that sitting and sharing a meal together isn't a priority, and that fast and convenient is key, rather than enjoying proper food. In France, they sit down and have these great meals, and they have a cafeteria where you can heat things up and cook things, and you've got a fridge. We're in this hot country and our kids' lunches are at the bottom of their bags in a locker. It is so disgusting when you actually think about it. So it's it's tough, I think, for me. I'm not looking forward to school next year and having to pack for the whole day knowing it's just in a box in the bag.
Yeah, you got to get the ice cubes and stuff. Not ice cubes as such, but like a frozen block of ice that you put. Pack. Yeah, you feed. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. See, my words, they just don't come out. What's one area of your life you would like to improve?
Oh, that's a good one. I think for me at the minute it's been finding balance and giving and allowing myself more time and space to do nothing and just that spontaneity, because things have been so busy for years now. And so that's a real area of just having a bit more peace and calm and spontaneity. So that's probably the one area. I think also I'm a really creative person. I can't draw or do any of those typical creative things, but I just love that space to be creative, and I don't think you can be as creative as you'd like to be once you're a mum, because creativity only comes from quiet. It doesn't come from
space.
and you don't really get that as a mum. So I think I miss a lot of the creative time to just sort of go for walks at your own pace and just a little bit of more of that sort of side of things. So that would probably be a little area that I need to work on over this summer period is my plan.
Okay. And what's your greatest fear and how do you deal with it?
It really used to be what people thought, I think, especially more of that ego mind. And I think that came a lot from, just being a woman and working in the industry that I was in and, caring a lot about what people thought and other people's opinions. And that's something I no longer have a problem with. I've worked really hard on that. And that was a big fear factor. It held me back from doing a lot of things and just sort of stepping into who I am 1,000% and not being ashamed of a bit of it at all. And I think that being a mum really helped with that, because it just, you sort of realise the only opinions you care about is that of the kids and your family, and legitimately nothing else matters but that. So I think that's it. Right now my biggest fear is that my son is going to stop having his day sleep.
He will.
Because I know he will, and we're getting closer where it's sort of getting later and it's getting shorter, and I rely on that hour and a half like I can't even tell you. So I'm in fear of this.
Well, you change it from sleep time to quiet time. So
okay,
it's still the same amount of rest period, but he's just not asleep, and he might need to just do quiet time on the mat, or he could watch like a program or something like that. So you could still get it, but you've got to train him to say like you still need rest because you're still quite young. Just make it quiet time. Again, look, I'm giving my opinion. Sorry. I can't help myself.
It's good. You know what I mean? It's just that sleep, that silence of sleep in the middle of the day, and you can quickly get things done, make phone calls you've got to do. For me, it's, I usually try and get him to sleep actually in the car, and because then I have a solid hour and a half to study or to work that's outside of the house, because I find when you're in the house and that hour and a half sleep is about housework, as you mentioned before. So, or just, cooking or housey stuff, and that's not fun.
No, it's not fun. It's crap, really. But anyway, we all have to do it. But another thing that I used to do is like you've got to wear them out until they basically like burn out. So like that's usually like swimming. Yeah. Swimming would always do that to my kids. So like that, I give them like even if you just go to the pool, splash around for an hour and a half, and they'd just be exhausted. That they would just fall asleep. So. Got to wear them out.
That's right. My son started the sports school here that he loves, so they do a different sport sort of every month, and it goes for almost an hour, which is quite a lot for a 2-year-old class. But he runs solidly for that hour and is exhausted at the end, which is great. So there's always a good sleep on Thursdays.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so I've got
count on Thursday.
Count on Thursdays. I've got 3 quick questions and then I'll let you get on with your day. First question is, have you signed up to any emails that you actually find value in receiving the emails?
Yes, there is one. It's Letters from the Universe or Notes from the Universe. I can't remember exactly the domain name, but you could just Google it. Mm-hmm. And every afternoon into about 5, 6 o'clock, you get a little note from the universe. So when you plug into, your sort of female, male, what it is that you're wanting assistance with. Perhaps it's, love or relationships or career or finances or any of these sorts of things. And then you get a little note from the universe. And they're always, of course, spot on and always just that nice little a couple of sentences, maybe just a couple of words sometimes, that just, especially around that sort of 5 o'clock in the afternoon time, that just makes you feel really good, like everything's okay, that you're on track. And yeah, it's just a nice little positive affirmation in the afternoon. That's probably my favourite.
Oh, I like it. What's your one piece of advice you'd give your pre-baby self?
To just love the body that I'm in and enjoy it, and stop complaining about being bored. I used to complain about being bored when I had an hour to myself. Just to be more present and in my body and in my space, and just enjoy that time.
Okay. And the final question, what is the most useful and useless baby item you have?
Oh, well, useful was, we actually have just given it away, but it was a mummaroo. Have you seen these things?
No,
They're like
what is
a
that?
baby seat that it's amazing. It's like one of those baby bouncer sort of seats, but it's computer controlled. It's got a little dock down the bottom for music, and it has different white noises and a different setting. So rather than those vibrating seats that you would put babies in and, they look like their heads are vibrating off it, it has these beautiful gentle movements like the sway of a mum or being in the car, and that both my kids absolutely loved until they sort of grew out of it at about 1, and it used to just help to put a baby down for a little while. So that was definitely very useful, I found, for mine. And useless would be all of the cute little clothes that I bought, especially for my daughter, just little, when they're babies, when they're newborns and things, like little jackets and jeans, with pockets. And it would always make us laugh, like, what does my 2-month-old need with pockets in a shirt? Or
Just put a dummy in there.
Yeah. So just the cute but completely useless little clothes.
I know. They're just for photo shoots though, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
That's why they need them, for the photo shoot. I never actually got the photo shoots done with my little ones. So.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't.
I did.
No, we were a bit poor actually. To be honest with you.
Oh, so you mean to pay? Yeah, no, I never paid anybody either. I just would.
Oh, we did.
I think my phone camera roll would fill about 5,000 photos a day, just them sleeping.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you, Alela, for being on the Busy Mum podcast. It's been a pleasure to speak with you this morning.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure for me too.
Yay!
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the Busy Mum podcast. Don't forget to let your friends know, and also subscribe to the iTunes channel, and also my socials if you want to see what I'm getting up to. A brand new episode is out every Monday morning, just like clockwork.